I think now may I ask S. Basu to give his views of various presentations, and then we would like each of the panelists to give 1 minute what their view, how to take it forward.
Yeah, if
Uh,
you want to.
Good afternoon or good evening to all the panelist member and gift and Professor Kannan and Dr. Arnie for giving me this opportunity, and Professor Basu, Director of CSR Institute of Minerals and Metals Technology at Bhubaneswar. I think we had a tremendous day today, all the sessions, but this session was very important. I think skilling India is what we work here, all of us, and so it's so much important for us. And we all know that how the skilling process goes on in India, and we know the word, the jugaad, that we all familiar with, and how actually it affected us over the time. Now it's time to really have a, I mean, jugaad can of course fix your tap in your home, especially in India somehow, but if you have to have a high-end product, it cannot be done by a jugaad process. So we really require a skill set, and that is what we were, a specific skill set, and that is what we were all describing or talking about. Starting with Professor Banerjee, I think rightly set up the problem. He, of course, in various ways talked about that how deficient we are in this category vis-a-vis, let's say, Chinese or China that progressed last 30 to 40 years, and we were all together in 70s or late 70s. We're all together in terms of GDP and many aspects, and they are moved forward. So only 5.5 million people are through goes through vocational training compared to 90 million in China, even more maybe the number. So that's important. That is what Professor Banerjee in different form highlighted it. And after that, Dr. Archana Sharma from CERN, of course, she dealt with a big project, of course, the Big Hadron, but then she emphasized that how to participate in mega project. It's important for India to participate. India did participate in the mega project, and go on participating in mega project, and offshoot of a mega project like the PET scan that has come, and that's very important for nuclear medicine or for cancer treatment. So these are the fallout of when you are doing a mega project. Of course, there is a bigger objective. 40 countries are participating, a big a budget, but from there, of course, the different offshoot of project can come. And of course, Indian students participated, and they learned a lot from there by participating. Indian scholars, students, and the faculty members. Mr. Sharad Mohan has a very nice understanding and experience about India, the state of Bihar, Odisha, Eastern UP. Mainly, he touched upon his experience from there, and this I did not be very regionalistic. I think it is true as well for all over India, whether it's the Tamil Nadu, northeastern states, or if you go to Jammu Kashmir or Gujarat or Rajasthan, it's all be similar in many ways. So he talked about that how we can deal, how we can do things right. You can have a route, academic route, but you can have a skill-based route to give jobs. The most important point that I like to highlight here, we know the problem, but we don't know the solution. The things are happening in very organic way. In India, things happens very organic way. It's not a very stringent, straight-jacketed, rule-based things happen. So far, if you see, many things happen very organic way. But if I just have a very good Hochschule, the German model here, a very good hands-on training or skilling school, but then I have to have a job for them. At the end of the day, there should be a job, there should be a market, there should be where they will be, I mean, the product that would come out, those innovations have to be there. If that is not there, then just skilling will not work. And it's kind of a catch-22 situation. So these are important points given by Mr. Sharad Mohan, which I just added from my side. But I think he talked about different aspect that using our mother tongue, leaving the knowledge and moving forward with a hands-on training, center of excellence and in education system, and research project, and things like business model or giving the commerce or the importance of IPR, even the school level. Why don't the economics, the mathematics, everything goes side by side, even from the class 8, including the IP, the patent, right? The importance of that, how to write it, and what you should write, and all these things at least will start from the school level, not in the graduate level. That's the important point he talked about. Dr. Ajit Jorkar is very pointed discussion on AI, and he's being, of course, director of this course in Oxford University. And he mentioned that how important is AI going to be, and what are the difficult problems or engineering problems that AI can solve and will be solving, and it's going to come in a big way. Can India positions itself today to jump in and do a big way in AI? We have the skill set. We are good in mathematics. The people are generally very good in mathematics, even if they're not trained, because it's a kind of understanding, a quantitative understanding, and the number churning is generally goes very well with the Indian student. So I think it's AI is one area, probably it required mathematics, data science. Here India can do really well. And he also mentioned different things like diversity. Diversity is very important for India, and we all agree that it's a diverse country, and we have unity in diversity. And diversity actually gives you many things, whether it comes from culture, language, the habit, the many things together actually give you the whole community, and the science is part of it. Science is not that you can get from different diversities, you can get a science out of that also. And then he talked about cognitive dependence. Of course, these are all AI where we can go forward in future. And then Canada model of CIFR, or US and UK model, he said, is much better than the model that Singapore or China is following as far as the AI is concerned. And the last speaker, Ajay Joshi, he of course was champion in BI Education Foundation. There's a foundation he is being working with the underprivileged children to educate them, those who can afford, they do not go to school, or they cannot afford to go to the school. I think he is working with them and doing tremendous job. And he just mentioned and he just showed that how he is doing it. And of course, two important points he talked about: the burning desire for a student, even he is weak in terms of economy. I mean, he doesn't have money, but if he has the desire, he or she has the desire, or that you get a teacher who is passionate about teaching, and then of course you can overcome all these barriers that you have. And then through his foundation, he has done a wonderful job. I think that can be immaculate, or that could be we can copy that, and we can of course have such kind of foundation in many places in India. But this is not the one of the way to do things. I think there are diversified way that we have to take forward, that skilling India, whether it is done in IITs or ISER or NITs or CSIR. It is done in a very dedicated school for only skilling. Those are coming up, that we know that I know specifically that Tata Steel, Vedant, and JSW and Nalco has come up a Biju Patnaik steel skilling center, steel in the sense for the steel industry. And so there it will be only a training will be given to the student after passing 12th for handling in the steel plant, whether it's a blast furnace or whatever training they required, or maybe a coking coal, or using non-coking coal to coking coal, or coal gasification. So these kind of training are going to come in Kalinganagar, close to Bhubaneswar. So such kind of, and that is coming from the industry. Tata Steel is actually taking it forward. So such kind of skilling university or skilling centers should come more. I mean, this is for the steel industry, but that can come from electronics, can come from leather. Of course, leather, there's diploma and training institutes are there already in India. India really does well in leather industry. I'm just telling. So these are the points that we discussed, and of course, the things were set by our principal advisor to Prime Minister, Dr. Vijay Raghavan. He mentioned that in the pandemic situation, what India did and how they did it, and they want to position themselves in a big way in the coming years. And government is looking at spending more in R&D in a different ways, and the participation, the key factor is the participation of industry in R&D. That's a key factor, and that's how we should move forward. Otherwise, I mean, we have to give you a priority whether we want to make roads or before we put 3% GDP in R&D. We want to make hospitals or we want to make primary education school, whether before we put 3% in of GDP in R&D. That's the question. I think it's a all over. I think the overall approach should be every sector we have to work, and we have to work in tandem. So that's in nutshell, and now maybe it is open for more discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Basu. Now I request Professor Arni to take over the proceedings.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Kannan, for fantastically introducing all the speakers. And each and every speaker spoke exactly the thing what is needed for the Bharat, a nutshell. And then they themselves are very inspired to serve the scientific community, society, and it is evident from their talks that how much they really connected to see that Bharat, the idea of Bharat being flourishing in the future. And they also appreciative of the idea currently, various aspects of the government, the good things, and then what all the improvements in the education system is needed. And finally, Professor Basu fantastically summarized, and he brought important point about diversity. I completely agree that we have we are diverse country. That's the advantage. And here, being in the states, we have to all the faculty, not just me, all the communities, faculties, including the local, I mean, all the races, everyone have to annually go through a diversity course. That means how to give respect to other communities, how to interact with them in the coffee shops, how to interact with them in the office canteens. These all courses have been taught because the people are not accustomed for the diverse cultures. But back there, I see that naturally, as Professor Basu mentioned, we have that advantage of being a diverse culture, and diversity increases the opportunities to think better way. And also, as Dr. Mohan mentioned about the mother tongue, that's a very, very important point. Training in the mother tongue, my kids speak here 3 languages. As I speak 5 different languages other than English, other 5 different Indian languages. I grew up in various cities, so I would like to speak various languages whenever I get the opportunity. When I go to temples here, I speak their language if I know their language. So my kids also speak. I insist them at home. I don't speak at all English. If they speak, my kids are little kids, so I insist them. I said I don't know English, so they have to respond me in Indian language. So that point of that is well taken, and then Professor Banerjee's point of the vocational education, that's and that's very well highlighted at the population pyramids he has shown and the age structures. These all after the British left India, that's very we had a really tough time because all the economy is gone. All the money they've been looted, and our own resources have been sold outside, and the agriculture profits have been shared at the West. The cotton industry, everything, the money has been driven out of the country. Everything driven out of the country. So it is big. We have to have very very solid approach to bring back. I mean, we cannot bring back the money, but the technology, at least transfer the technologies, make our own kids happy and lively. So that point of Dr. Banerjee and Dr. Sharma, I know very exciting. I really very passionate talk given by her. So and same with Mr. Joshi about the vocational schools and AI. Very pointed talk as I mentioned, Dr. Basu. So these are all uh, you know helpful for our own communities. And the questions, one of the questions that came up in that I would like to read the question, Dr. Ben. I think we didn't had a. So, Dr. Banerjee, someone asked Pandaru Venugopal, you're asking how can we reduce the number of dropouts from secondary education media, Dr. Banerjee?
Right. So I think other panelists also mentioned this. What I hear and read, and this is anecdotal, is especially in villages, in the rural areas, a lot of the teachers don't even bother to show up, or when they show up, they don't teach and they just collect a paycheck, right? So I think if you have a carrot and stick approach where part of their salary might be tied to the graduation rates of the students at all levels, primary, secondary, or whatever. It could be either a penalty where they don't get part of the salary, or it could be structured as a bonus that depending on the percentage of students who graduate various grade levels in primary or secondary schools, they get additional bonuses. Uh, you have to have financial incentives, I think. Okay, so that might be a way of reducing school dropout rates. And similarly for the children, there could be bonuses. And as they graduate different levels, there could be small financial incentives. Problem with that, however, is I've read reports where students, poor students in rural areas, if they flunk exams, they're so traumatized that they commit suicide. So I'm afraid that if you have financial ties with graduation rates for the students, if they don't graduate, the parents might get mad at them, and child abuse and suicides and all that. I don't know. I mean, those are things to be looked at carefully. But certainly for the teachers, we shouldn't just pay them a salary just for being registered as a teacher. If they're not teaching and the students are not learning, either penalize them, or if the students, have acceptable academic outcomes, then, give them a bonus. Otherwise, it's simply not working in the villages. That's what I've read.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Banerjee. And the question to Dr. Sharma is that to visit CERN, you have shown the photos. So to visit CERN, is there any scheme between the CSIR institutes and the CERN?
Perhaps I might want to just add just what was mentioned earlier by Professor Banerjee, because I think that there used to be a very strong system of polytechnics in our country. And I think we have to really focus on strengthening that system back. And typically a student would enter a polytechnic after finishing the secondary and not going to the higher secondary. And that's where dropouts can be contained. This is a system that works immensely in Switzerland. Not everybody is obliged to go through the higher secondary. And even a carpenter is a professional, a garagist is a professional, and he has his degrees from these kind of polytechnics, so to speak. I think that we do have a system in our country. Perhaps it's not working very well, but then let us look at consolidating all these structures that already exist. And I think that Mr. Abhay Joshi is trying to do that. So let's just put our hands together in the different, let's say, corners that we are trying to work, and have a concerted plan on what we want to deliver. Because the youth is completely confused. They have no ideas on where to go, what to do. So that is, sorry, I took that question here. But coming to visiting CERN, I think in today's world, you just go on the web that was invented at CERN, and you can do virtual visits whenever you want, from wherever you want. In the pandemic situation, there will be no visits for very long time. All visits were canceled this year and also in the next year. So I think virtual visits is the game for now. And in the future, of course, there will be visits organized by India, so to speak. I mean, there are many, many visits and student opportunities. And yes, it's not easy because India is an associate member at CERN, but the quota system is there, and we get only 1 or 2 students. I mean, look at India and think of 1 or 2 students. It really doesn't work. So we need to have all the institutions in India which are doing mega science projects have opportunities where students can go and do internships or engage in research or do a project and sort of virtually visit any mega science project that they want to engage with and are interested. So I think we should leverage opportunities in our country and somehow remove this kind of, let's say, impression that, in our country, we do not have this kind of stuff that we are doing here at CERN. We do have. And let's try to showcase that in a big way.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. And the next question, is not specifically mentioned. So the mathematics part, Dr. Mohan mentioned and Dr. Javakar both mentioned the importance of mathematics, and also Dr. Basu concluded there that we have naturally the skills of mathematics there, naturally that is there in our communities. I mean, our own blood and our thinking. So the question is, the AI, the education system, math. So do you think that India need to really more advanced? I mean, more designed mathematical learning, or we are happy whatever we have? Because traditionally Indian mathematics, that question, that's part of the question. Just to add to the question, India traditionally has thousands of year history of learning maths and learning various languages, various historical things. We saw recently Jupiter and Saturn that coming together, but then thousands of years back, we have much before Galileo came up, we have the history of looking, understanding the planets. So the question is, do we still need to have some reinvention of mathematical training?
Can I take that? Can I take this question?
Either Dr. Mohan or Dr. Yauka, anyone.
Okay, I'll take it first and then I'll briefly, yes. So thank you for the question. First of all, I think the math knowledge is very important. To specifically answer the question, I think somebody said before that there are really 4 or 5 things in maths you need for AI. Linear algebra, probability theory, some optimization, some statistics. And those are actually quite up to, in the UK, we call GCSE A-level 12 standard. Most people understand those concepts. I think the real difference is sort of to see or emphasize the teaching of maths even beyond, because most people don't take maths like you can do pure maths, for example, yes, and then you are a quant, yes, typically that's your job profession. Otherwise you don't know where to go. Yes, I think people need to be taught that there is a very good career path when you look at mathematics, and you can apply it maybe in AI, in algorithms, and so on and so forth. So it is not sort of just a purely abstract thing where you're learning math. So this is my sort of emphasis on that, to sort of take it from just being a pure subject to saying that it is something which could be a real career path for you in AI.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Javakar. Dr. Mohan, you want to add?
Yes, I agree with what was said. Maths, the current math in India is pretty good. Only thing is the applied part is missing. I think that's where the narrative should be built to understand. For example, we have all been reading recently that the Mount Everest height has changed from what it was given. But how many of us here know that who gave this Mount Everest height? It was an Indian student, a Bengali guy in Bhagalpur. At that time, it was Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, one state. This guy gave the trigonometry and the calculation for the height of the Mount Everest, and then it was taken by somebody in UK, and then because of the colonial thing. So there are many such, and yesterday was our great Srinivas Ramanujan Day, right? Past day, 22nd of December, when we celebrated. How many of our students know about this, right? So applied part is missing. And very briefly, I'll say, when I was mentioning about the AI could be broken to a level where, you give a student a midday program, you give so many things, right? The model which I am proposing is, the kids, especially with the invent of the intrusion of the mobile phone. 100 million Indians have mobile phone. The kids play so many games. If we make that game tied to like incentivization, right? You solve one math problem, you get 2,000 rupees, 500 rupees at the lowest village level. You'll see the whole ecosystem change. That's where the pure math, the academic math will convert into the application part, and you will see the whole kids jumping into that, because the core of the Indian fabric is math. Because from the very childhood, people are calculating about their day-to-day mean. So we can talk more because of the time factor, but this is, yes, things need to be changed in that perspective.
In
Correct.
fact, I just want to add
Sorry.
one point.
Sure. Professor Kannan.
Yeah. This year we have been celebrating Professor C.R. Rao, the great statistician, and, statistics is also one of the strengths of the country. And I think Mahalanobis did it, then C.R. Rao. And, a man who could live till 100 and multivariate analysis, so many areas which he has contributed. I think statistics also should be made part of the school education, just not mathematics per day, but per se, but statistics makes it more interesting for children to, understand how predictions are made. I think we should encourage that also.
I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah, Professor Kannan is right. I was there at Kolkata for 15 years at Indian Statistical Institute. He rightly mentioned Professor C.R. Rao and Professor Mahalanabi's name. And Professor Mahalanobis built the ISI from the money he received from first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. And then with that money, the planning money, he built the Indian Statistical Institute first building. Then he nurtured Professor Rao, and Professor Rao became the world famous statistician. And then this year he completed 100 years, and his 100th birth anniversary. Just we celebrated everywhere all over the world, and there are about 500 conferences held. And only within India itself, there are 200 conferences. All the departments celebrated, and all the continents, Australia, Africa, Europe, USA celebrated his centenary. And I myself wrote books along with Professor Rao. Professor Rao, and you can see the blue colored books in my rack. They are written with him jointly. So that's a great honor. As mentioned, statistics, the numbers, Akhada game, Akhadabaji is very much in India. So that, given that, the question to Mr. Joshi is that the schooling that you mentioned about so this plan, whatever you have a nice plan, and this is mixing with Dr. Anil Kovarkar, in the beginning he gave a talk of silage. So these all coming together. Can we have any plan? I mean, whatever you work with the close, do you face any hurdles when working in India, like you show laptops? So is that laptop through they are learning in English, or those kids learning through laptops in their mother tongue?
Yeah,
Because
thanks
English
for the.
is very important. As Dr. Mohan mentioned, my kids and
Yeah,
at home, they insist them to speak the mother tongue. It is 2 to 3 languages. But when they go out, automatically English, we don't have to learn. Automatically in the US, the kids learn. Even though I tell not to learn, they can learn. So, but I tell them to. Similarly, you have any? You want to show
Yes.
any? You want to throw any light?
Yeah,
Dr.
so
Adi, I just wanted to add with your question as well. When we all know that the India has the Jilla Parishad school and some kind of the city based municipal schools and the rural side Jilla Parishad schools. In that we mostly find that the student doesn't have the liking to study, right? They get diverted to many other things, like nowadays smartphones with the YouTubes. Maybe a few of the students may get addicted with something, right? How all the panelists and of course Mohanji as well, so how do you see that to develop the interest within these students in our country?
can I take this? Yeah, I would like to just address 2 or 3 points here. First of all, I fully agree with Dr. Jaukar and Dr. Sharma on in terms of the importance of mathematics. And because I teach here, I tutor students here. A couple of years back, I had a GCSE student. He asked me, he disliked maths. So he asked me, why should I learn maths? And he used to insist me whenever I used to take any new topic to tell me what is the importance of this topic. And then I realized that if I have to develop interest in any subject within the student's mind, unless the interest is developed, the student is not going to put himself or herself into that. The only way I can develop that interest is by giving them the relevance of that, not only the topic but the subject to the everyday world. So even with maths, I think maths can be a very abstract subject, as well as it can be it is a very practical subject as well. So teachers training, so school teachers training to make them understand that connection between pure maths and the applied maths, and how that can be communicated to the students so that more students come out with the better sort of understanding about maths, will really help. That is one thing, and that is what I do with my teachers in VI Foundation, not only for maths but even for science, making sure that to address Mr. Nandakumar's question, motivating them is very important. And yes, in Jilla Parishad schools or in government schools, children are least interested. I don't blame them. They are least interested because no effort has been put in to develop that interest. But if you start taking slowly things inserting some good things in their mind about the applications, and giving them day-to-day example about when you're walking from your house to the school, what do you see, how it is connected to your subject that you're learning here, etc., etc., they start thinking, and then the whole the sort of wheels start moving. So it's all about connecting to the real life, any subject we teach, and that will, I think, I believe in that it does make a difference. We, in my organization, I've seen that. And secondly, finally, coming back to Dr. Rao's question about the language, yes, the schools that I have dealt with, majority of the schools teach in local language, but some of them are in semi-English, they call it, where science and maths is taught in English. So what we do is the normal communication happens in local language, because if too much communication happens in English, they lose the track. And once they lose the track, they are not able to understand the concepts. So normal communication is in the local language. But of course, scientific terms, mathematical terms, you cannot, I mean, at least I'm not capable of translating them into local language. But at the same time, we also train them to learn English, particularly from the communication perspective, because even simple thing applying to a university, you need to know how to write. You need to know how to face an interview, and at that level they are not even able to talk about themselves in their own language, forget about English. So we do subtly train them in using English as a language of communication, because whatever we say, English is going to stay as a global language, and we cannot deny that. So we do that. So yes, it's a mix of local language and English.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. In fact, that's what the new education policy in India is, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. That's a fantastic, that is what they know, the multiple languages, that is from apart from other investments in science and in the industry, make in India, everything what the leadership under the leadership of Modi ji is coming up. One of the things also their education policy, along with blending the English along with the regional languages, that's very important, as Mr. Joshi, that you are mentioning. And then the AI, because I work also in AI, the language, when you say the language part, the AI seem to be, the many scientists are agreeing now that if the computers are trained with ancient languages like Hindi or Sanskrit or Tamil, Telugu, the old language, Devanagari script, then the performance of computer for the AI would be much efficient. That's what the prediction. Because the sounding of the computer never gets confused if you train in Sanskrit than if you train in the Sanskrit or Hindi, then train with the English. Because certain sounds in English are situational dependent. But in Hindi word or Sanskrit word, whenever you write certain word, certain letter, that letter has always the same sounding. So that situation is not there in English. So the AI community also, whenever I go to the meetings, I see that a lot of Western the agreement that the ancient languages, if you train to the computers, then the computer, their instruction. Computer is like logical mathematical instruction. If the instructions are given in a perfect language, computer never get confused. But English, sometimes the pronunciation, certain vowels are different. So that ancient languages have a definitely bigger role. And if there are no more questions, I would like to hand out to. I want to thank once again all the speakers, the panelists, and then the co-chair, Professor Kannan, and the organizers, Dr. Rama Bansal, Dr. Mohit, Dr. Nandakumar, everyone at the IT, Mr. Srishti Jindal. I want to thank everyone. And then before that, the conclusion, I want to hand over to Dr. L.O.G. Rao. Dr. L.O.G. Rao, you're there?
Namaste once again. We had anticipated that this education a subject that is dear to all of us, this session is going to overrun. I knew this. We slated few presentations so that we can engage in larger discussions. And I underestimated myself about how much time we could have given. But any case, thank you. But please consider two things. Since we cannot come to a formal closure here, I sincerely request you to share your thoughts in a proposal format. That is one. Second one is, at some point of time, a time that is convenient to globally suitable, we are going to schedule a webinar. And there we will invite all of you as panelists. And there probably you can come and share some of your thoughts. With those two thoughts, we will close today, but as you know, tomorrow we have three very important sessions. One is the health one, which is session 4. Then we have the interactive session. I think I have sent Google Forms to all of you. Take few minutes and put your inputs in terms of, because tomorrow if you want to move forward, all of your challenges, observations, learnings, we need to compile and we need to share it. And the last is the valedictory, where we will have opportunity to hear from our dignitaries. So with those thoughts, I will say today, namaste, and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Nandakumarji, back to you for IT closure.
Namaste to all.
Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Ani and Dr. Yaloji. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Dr. Kannan as well. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.